Alright, so the story for Tokyo Ghoul is there's this guy named Ken Kaneki, and in the beginning of the series he's going on a date with this girl named Rize, but it turns out that Rize is actually a ghoul, and she eats part of Ken Kaneki, and the only way for Ken Kaneki to survive is to get Rize's organs implanted into him, because Rize dies shortly after she eats part of him. So Ken Kaneki survives, but unfortunately for Ken Kaneki, after that surgery, he becomes a ghoul himself, and he has to live in the ghoul society from then on. And also in the series, there are these people called ghoul investigators that hunt ghouls, and that's one of the main threats throughout the series.
Tokyo Ghoul really knows how to take the horror element and make it into something really well done. Now, me personally, when I was reading through the series, I didn't really think that it was the best in the world. A lot of people praise it for how well that it is. And for me personally, I never found it to be like the very best as people have hyped it up to be. Don't get me wrong, this is a great series, and it's very fit for around this time because it is Halloween. And I really do think that it is a good series, but it's just not as well done as I thought it would be. And so when you go further on down the line, it's becoming less of a full-on horror manga at the beginning than it is a all-out war at the very end. Because at the very beginning we see how Kaneki is struggling with trying to find something to eat, but it just turns out to him just having to deal with being part ghoul and end up getting into a war between investigators and other ghouls. And that just kind of took away the neat aspect of it. And it never became a real big problem towards the end of the series. And so it was entertaining, but the entire thing is that Kaneki did a complete character change. And that was a huge part of the story, because it just had things that... Because there were so many people that were going after Kaneki because of his one eye, that it just changed the entire dynamic as a whole. When Kaneki would change, that's when the story would change. And we never really had to focus on these other things again. There were small parts, there were small little subplots that really never came into fruition later on in the series, and it kind of made some parts of it at the beginning very useful, but towards the end it just kind of fell flat. The one big problem with the story, and this is one reason of why I'm going to deduct it points. It's because it doesn't have a solid ending. This is the first part of the Tokyo Ghoul series, with a sequel series called Tokyo Ghoul Re. Volume 14 of Tokyo Ghoul, it leaves you at a cliffhanger, and it says to be continued in Tokyo Ghoul Re. So in all reality, Tokyo Ghoul itself is not the finished product. Tokyo Ghoul Re is also along with it. I'm just now reviewing Tokyo Ghoul, and that's all this is going to be. For me, that's a really, really dumb thing to do. That's like if you split 7 Deadly Sins in half, or if you split Soul Eater in half. If you split, it's kind of like splitting Dragon Ball Z in half. It's like if you made up to the Frieza Saga, just Dragon Ball Z, and then you made the other part from like the androids to Boo. It's like if you turn that in Dragon Ball Z Kai. It's splitting it's splitting unnecessarily. You know what I'm saying? There's not a need for it to be split up. And so, because it doesn't have a cohesive ending, I'm going to deduct it some points. It's not a solid ending. And if you do get into this, I do have to say that you should be weary, that you should probably also pick up Tokyo Ghoul Re. But I'm not suggesting that you do that because this is just enough for me. It's not a bad ending. It's not a bad cliffhanger, but at the same time, it's not conclusive. So, but this is all I'm going to get. So, yeah. Now, this series has a good progression of characters. Not just in a sense of how they develop, but in a sense of how they are introduced. There aren't too many characters that are thrown at you all at once, but then there aren't that very little amount of characters, because you get characters introduced all the way up until, like, close to the final volume. And so you get really... Actually, the final volume still introduces a very new character. And so, the thing is that you really like these characters. most of these characters are really unique, and they're a lot different from a lot of other characters in manga. And it's because that these other characters really haven't been that done before. There are these certain archetypes that aren't really done a lot, but then they kind of work, but at the same time there's a little few weird ones every once in a while. But that's not really the point. So right now I'm just going to go through and I'm going to talk about my favorite characters because there are quite a few of them. So the first one obviously is going to be Ken Kaneki, the main character of the entire series, who progressed fairly well throughout the series. What started off as a meek and little boy turned into a very large ghoul in popularity and in strength. He has now become a very renowned ghoul, and he's shaken how everything works in the ghoul world. Being the first half-human and half-ghoul hybrid, it really makes a difference into what the world sees ghouls as, because Kaneki is so different from the rest of the ghoul world. He's changed how their dynamic works, he's changed how everything works, just because of him being bitten by Rize and him having that surgery. And that changes how everything in the story works. The second character we're going to talk about is Toka. Toka is the girl who seemingly follows Kaneki for a large majority of the series, whether that be into battle or to train or in one way or the other, and it seems to be some form of romantic attraction, but I'm not going to go that in depth with it. But Toka is pretty good. She's the sidekick per se, and she's just the dark persona that needs to be added to the series. She is the staple ghoul of the one who is just trying to eat and survive. And it's pretty neat how Toka works, because she's introduced just as a human, just as the rest of them. She wasn't introduced as a ghoul or anything, and she really helps Kaneki along the way. And I really did like Toka. She was really cool, and I thought she was really well done. And there wasn't really any part of complaining that I had to her. She was strong, she was cool, and I just liked her. Now the final character that I'm going to go over is Amon. Amon is the ghoul investigator who is trying to find out these certain cases. He's on the opposing side of the ghouls. Why should a villain be here? Well, here's the thing. Tokyo Ghoul really knows how to make its characters relatable. They're on both sides of the spectrum. The ghouls are just trying to survive, while the investigators are just trying to do their job. And in one way or the other, we can find a way to relate to them. And so they just want to protect what's precious to them. And Amon is no different. Amon is the very strong character who, he's an investigator. He wants to get his job done. After his partner dies in battle, he just wants to kill these certain ghouls. And he goes and stops at nothing in order to get the job done. It makes it very relatable because he just wants to avenge his partner, but he also hates ghouls just as much. So he starts to relate to Kaneki just as well, because they're both climbing in the ranks and they're both making a name for themselves, and so they just seemingly are parallels to each other, but on opposing sides. Now, I'm not going to go into detail with a lot of more characters because there's so many people on the ghoul side and on the investigator side. For the investigators, we have Akira, we have Mato, and we have Juzo, who were my really favorites. But then for ghouls, we have Tsukiyama, Mr. Yoshimura, and we also had Nishio, who I also really liked. And I don't have time to go into depth to all of those, except Tsukiyama, I'm pretty sure, is a really close to a pedophile. Like, oh man, that's real, like,
Alright, so in terms of the artwork, I think that the artwork was pretty incredible for the most part. Sui Ishida did an amazing job of portraying the characters' emotions. The heavily inked pages really did the series justice and really fit the dark tone of the series. And overall, the fight scenes just looked stunning. Now, with that being said, the artwork did look kind of mediocre and a little shaky at times. I think that was mainly because Sui Ishida was still getting used to drawing the characters, and I think he drew the series digitally, so maybe he was just getting used to that. Nonetheless, though, I think that the good artwork definitely outweighed the bad artwork.
So yeah, Tokyo Ghoul has climbed in the ranks of one of my top 10 favorites. I really did enjoy Tokyo Ghoul, but it's not going to be one of, like, my top 5. It will be in the top 10 because it's entertaining, it's well-paced, the characters are developed pretty well, it really knows how to work on its pacing, and I just absolutely love it. And I think that it's really entertaining, and it's a good story for this time of the year because it's Halloween. You want something creepy every once in a while, something that's unusual, and that's exactly what Tokyo Ghoul is giving to you. Something that's unusual and entertaining at the same time, and it's something that I really appreciate because I really do like Tokyo Ghoul, just because of how well its art is done and how well that the characters are done. It's something that other series should look at for some form of, like, character development for such a huge cast, but it's not going to be in my top favorites. It's going to be in the top 10 probably, more than likely. Yeah. So with that in mind, I think I'm going to give Tokyo Ghoul an 8 out of 10, and I'm probably going to say that this is a very good Halloween read. So, you go for it. Just go for it. You do you, dude. Do you, dude. Nice. And a very big thanks to TDog who helped me out in this video. You did awesome, man. And he's got some words for you just as well, so take it away, TDog.
Yo, what's up guys, this is TDog. I upload a lot of manga reviews and manga related videos, so if you're into that type of stuff, feel free to subscribe.
If you're interested in buying Tokyo Ghoul at all, then these are in the Viz Signature Editions, which means that they cost about $13. So there's 14 volumes total in the entire series, so you can go and pick this up for a pretty good price. And there are a few, so take your time with it. And it's something that I feel like that you can take your time with reading, because to be fair, these are actually kind of long to read for me personally, because there's not as many action scenes and there's kind of more talking, but you know, that's okay. But this series is worth picking up, and I suggest you do it. If you're so inclined, maybe you should follow me on Twitter. Hey, also follow TDog on Twitter, because he did pretty cool too. Follow both of us on Twitter if you want to talk more about manga stuff, and you know, it's gonna be good. It'll be cool. It will be really cool. Alright, see you later.
Alright, thanks for watching guys. If you enjoyed this review of Tokyo Ghoul, and you want to see another one with both ShrugPod and myself, check out my review as well. It's pretty good, you know, I just uploaded it today, so check that out, and subscribe to ShrugPod. Yo, ShrugPod, you've been reading Tokyo Ghoul, right? Nice. Oh, I see. So the review's gonna be sort of like a cross-collaboration type of thing. Well, you know, I should probably get going and, you know, churn out this review. Alright, yeah, see ya.